Welcome to the new episode of our podcast on the spot, Zooming in the World. My name is Jovan Jovanovic. I'm a former Serbian ambassador in Tunisia and ASEAN, also former member of Serbian parliament. Today, I have a great honor and pleasure to host a dear friend, former Prime Minister of Mongolia, Amarjargal Rinchinnyam, and current chairman of the Institute for Global Economic Research in Ulaanbaatar. Thank you so much for kindly accepting my invitation.
Thank you for inviting.
Well, there is a good reason to talk today. Just recently, at the end of June, in Mongolia, general elections took place, and we would like to discuss today the conditions in which these elections were held and also the consequences of these elections. My first question is about the conditions, because there were changes and just before the elections, I think there was a new electoral law. So if you can just compare the situation before and now during these elections.
Yes. Well, we had the electoral system, majoritarian electoral system, and the Mongolian parliament consisted 76 members of the parliament, and political parties and in general society understood that the number of MPs a little bit small for political situation for recent Mongolia's development, and also majoritarian system brings a very big swing. Winner takes all. So even you have % of votes, but you will have say 5-6 seats in the parliament. So it was a really big issue how to overcome all this issue, and after intense consultation between the political parties and parliament and president and other political institutions, it was made an amendment to the constitution according which we have now 126 seats, which is much bigger than 76, and electoral system is some kind of mix combination of majoritarian system and proportional system. Mm-hmm. So out of 126, 78 comes from majoritarian system, and the remaining 48 comes from party list or proportional system. And we do believe that this type or this kind of electoral system reflects more precisely the society, all society. Mm-hmm. So overall, it's
mm-hmm. Well, we have some technical difficulties, hopes that it will not continue. So if I understood well, this decision on changing the electoral system and amend the constitution was reached by a consensus of main political actors.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And it was a very short electoral campaign, I think only 17 days long. And how would you assess the conditions, yes, the media coverage and access and the finances and resources? If I'm not wrong, I think I read somewhere that, for example, when speaking of donations, the dominant MPP, the Mongolian People's Party, received, I think, almost $500,000 in donations, while your Democratic Party only 17,000. So it's a big discrepancy.
Well, I can't complain because, incumbent political parties and politicians always use and they favor the electoral system, gerrymandering and all the stuff and so on. So it's very much everywhere, seems to me. Mm-hmm. But conditions for election was by definition very much equal, I would say. The ruling party had a huge potential administrative resources plus financial resources and plus huge influence and dominance in media, and of course all that together I think it's somehow reflected on the election outcomes.
But still, if you can talk about these outcomes, the MPP, the incumbent party, they lost the supermajority. And
Yes.
also, what were also, before going to that, what were the major issues during the campaign? Or what were the major platforms?
Well, it's very hard
like
to
the slogan
tell.
of the national coalition. I think the 19 parties and 2 coalitions participated, and the national coalition had the slogan, "Let's all get rich."
Yes. Well, it's a newly established coalition. Let's get rich, and I think it's they succeeded to a certain extent, and they got 4 seats in the parliament.
Yeah.
But this coalition was sponsored or financed by one of the big Mongolian company.
Okay, so what were the major issues during the campaign?
During the campaign, major issue, it's it's very hard to tell something significant. If you look to substance, it was nothing.
Okay.
But it was very popular slogans. Let's fight corruption. Let's destroy this systemic corruption, and so on and so on. Other slogans was let's unite, let's go together, and such kind of it's a very simple, but on the other hand, I would say very much populist slogans. But general understanding, in my view, was that the ruling party ruled for more than 8 years. So it was somehow disappointing results of the activity, and in general, public wanted to have some kind of change, some kind of renewal, and they wanted also to see new faces. And I think this is what's behind all these popular slogans. This was main idea, to bring some change and to see new faces.
Yes, and I think that over half of the MPs are newly elected MPs in the parliament.
Yes, yes, and also many young people was elected to the parliament. They are mainly from party list. And also it's interesting that we had a representative of women's much better than before. If you look, it's about 25% of MPs average for Asia, or 27% average for global MPs. For Mongolia, it's 30%, more than 30% women was elected. And because the reason why women was elected so well, because election law and election quota, we put an election law quota for 30%. All nominations should be ladies, and in the party list, it was some kind of zipping procedure. So you put, if you put the man, then next should go woman, then man, woman, then this way. And because of all the things, we had a very good representatives of women in the parliament. Also, we have some representatives of disabled peoples. And again, it's something new for Mongolian parliament, for Mongolian politics, because every political party made a commitment, open commitment that we will nominate disabled representatives of disabled people to the parliament, and 2 persons was elected. Regarding the financing, you just mentioned that overall estimation about $20 million, all political parties together, according to the auditing agency. And of course, more than half of them goes to the MPP.
And how about the media coverage?
So it's a ruling party.
How about the media coverage?
Oh, media
debates?
coverage. Media coverage. It's not yet finished, but initial results are showing that the ruling party had a huge advantage, especially in national TV.
Okay. And now going back to you mentioned that there is an increased number of young people in the parliament, but on the other hand, there was maybe due to disappointment with NPP's the rule, 8-year rule, the rule, there was a lower turnout in this election than in the last, and this turnout was particularly visible among youth.
Yes.
So what were the reasons, especially for the youth, not to go out and vote?
Yes. Well, I can't tell exactly what's the reason why youngsters and the young people didn't made an interest in this election. According to the statistical numbers, turnout was down by 12%, 12% for young
among youth
voters, and the overall turnout was about -4%, comparing with the previous election. And during the campaigning period and during this pre-election times, it was some kind of expectation that the turnout will be much higher and young people will participate more actively. But outcome, the result are showing that the turnout was lower, and of course the young voters, the participation was much less than we expecting, and we really cannot explain why it's happening. That generations, these are very specific people. Say the youngsters, they have a very specific interest, and maybe one of the reasons, because it's a new generation that generation Y. So this is one reason. Second reason, I would say, also was somehow related to the procedure of election, and usually young people prefer easy access to the voting system, but going to this and pulling all this, reading, getting all this text, and it's I don't remember how many parties participated, but it was very long. In one district, it was more than 70 candidates to be considered, especially for the young people, I think. So it's a combination of many issues, I think, was reason why the young voters participation rate was low. But on the other hand, I think that the trust to political system, trust to the government, trust to the politicians among young people are very low. And the results of election also some kind of reflection of such kind of attitude.
Okay, since we had some problems when you were explaining that, I would just like to summarize that one of the problems why youth was in a way disinterested it was a little bit a complicated electoral process and too many candidates, etc. So it was not easy to make choice, and they got used to doing things in an easy way. And speaking about disappointment with the politicians, having in mind that the Grand Coalition has been created after the election between the MPP and your Democratic Party, would then some of your voters, the Democratic Party voters of the opposition voters, would be disappointed with that coalition?
Yes. Well, I would say that many people was expressing the dissatisfaction with Grand Coalition, and everybody was expecting some kind of significant role to be played by opposition parties, because during the last two elections we had the opposition, but the opposition was very small. Out of 76 MPs, it was just less than 10. So it was their voices was not so influence the process of political decision making was very little, and everybody wanted to have a much stronger opposition parties, and everybody was expecting that Democratic Party and other parties will play significant role as an opposition party. But once they went and joined the MPP and created this Grand Coalition, well, it was really disappointing.
So what are the major points of the program of this new government? What this new government would be focused on?
Well, a new government just was formed, and there is still no government program yet created. And I think the extraordinary session of the parliament will be held next month in August. And during this extraordinary session, I think they will discuss new cabinet's proposal, new cabinet's manifesto and program. And then we will see in detail what the new cabinet is going to do. Argument for creating this coalition was that we need to push and provide full-scale support for the larger economic projects, because in Mongolia we have a problem with pushing with the big economic projects, and without creating some kind of consensus, not just between the political parties, but within the society, it's very hard to get approval for the bigger economic project. And one of arguments for the creation of the this was to push the economic reform and be.
There was some problems. Can you just repeat that about this argument, the last one, because we lost you for a second.
Okay. Well, the main argument for the establishing this Grand Coalition, this joint cabinet was to push with economic reform activities, especially with with economic projects, bigger economic projects.
Like what?
By big economic project, I mean the project with foreign investment involving bigger investors, international investors.
In which areas, like energy or?
Well, it's mainly mining.
Very well. Okay, so do you expect that that the Democratic Party ministers will have a real power, and did your party get any significant portfolios?
Well, we already had got some seats in the cabinet. Party chairman became deputy prime minister, and he will be responsible for economic development policies. Also, we got Ministry of Justice and Internal Affairs, which will be responsible for issue related to the law enforcement, police, and so on and so on.
Fighting corruption,
and also regulation, legal regulation issues, anti-corruption issues. Anti-corruption is a little bit different, but it's still somehow related. And also we got seat in mining.
Okay.
Sector. So mining ministry also belongs to the Democratic Party.
Okay. How about the foreign policy? Are there any changes expected, or how much room Mongolia has being squeezed in between two giants, Russia and China? And what is also the Mongolia's stance on the war in Ukraine?
Well, it may be surprising, but in terms of foreign policy, we are very much consistent. And since 1990s, our foreign policy is very much in line with the international development, and I should tell that we should have a very good relations with our neighbors. In addition to them, we should have a very good relations with our third neighbor. So concept of a third neighbor, which is everybody except Russia and China, also our partners. And we want to see and expand, extend, improve our relations with these countries. So I would say that in terms of foreign policy, we do not expect any big changes. We will be active in bilateral level. We will be active in international organizations, and specifically to the Ukraine, our policy also very clear. We are supporting Chapter 1 UN resolution, according which every country have a right to sovereignty, and nobody can how it's called have an aggression against independent and sovereign state.
And just another question about the foreign policy, because in the past Mongolia used to be like some kind of a meeting spot for discussing North Korea issues. So
Yes.
do you expect Mongolia to continue playing that role, some kind of mediating role?
Well, I think Mongolia is one of the country in the world who have good and friendly relations with North Korea. And we're trying to assist and provide whatever we can provide to bring stability to Northeast Asia. And in this regard, Mongolia made several initiatives, including the Ulaanbaatar initiative, where the six-party talks was held in Ulaanbaatar. Also, we're trying to be a platform for different countries who want to have some kind of bilateral negotiations with North Korea. And just 2 months ago, I think it was meeting between Japan and North Korea in Ulaanbaatar. And it's some kind of neutral space to have such a kind of talks. And I do expect that in near future, Mongolia can be some kind of Helsinki for Asia.
Okay, I think that we can end on this a nice note, and I would like to thank you again for participating in this podcast, and thank you for sharing your vast experience and knowledge. I apologize to my viewers and listeners for occasional technical problems. Prime Minister Amarjargal is currently in the Gobi Desert, so from time to time the connection wasn't that good, but overall it was really okay. So thank you again, and thank you for talking to us, and thank you to my viewers for following my podcast. Thank you.
It was my pleasure.
Thank
you
you
very much. Bye.
Bye.